Hey everyone, Ronan here, and welcome back to the channel. As always, this is gonna be another massive part as we get closer to the end of January and the end of this scenario. But before we get into that, Nick Rivaro, thank you very much for the support. And also, everyone, please take a look at these analytics right here and the subscribed versus the unsubscribed. Please drop a like and drop a comment to help fuel the video so that way it can help get to a larger audience through the algorithm. And if this is your first time seeing the channel, please don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so that way you'll never miss another upload. But with all that being said, let's get into what if Brock took the gym challenge part 19. I hope you enjoy. We begin today's episode with our heroes Brock, Leon, and Joe as they are in the midst of wrapping up their adventures in the Isle of Armor. It's been about 2 weeks with Brock and Leon arriving on the island to start their training. The two have been going on non-stop, day and night, battling against both each other and Peony at the first chance they get. While the champion is clearly in a class of his own, the fact that they are exposed to such a high level of trainer is something that has been proven very fruitful for the two, as their Pokemon have gone from barely being able to utilize the powers of their G-Max forms to fully being able to utilize it and allowing them to use their specialty G-Max moves. Both Brock and Leon have become closer with Colossal and Charizard, with the two even forming an even tighter rivalry with each other. While those two have been in the midst of training, Joe has been facing his own set of troubles. He's been feeling extremely lonely as of late, unable to cope with the fact that Brock is actually training with somebody else, and Leon of all people. And Joe's beginning to feel like he's not only being left behind, but his friend and him are becoming more and more distant. The boy isn't quite sure on how to take this. However, he has been getting a lot of time to spend with the old man Mustard, as while the old coot is helping with their training, so to speak, it's more of a managerial role, as he doesn't wish to battle either one of them. He's just offering them guidance on how to increase their power with the G-Max transformation and how to direct their Pokemon when they're moving in such a large, lumbering fashion. But this has allowed the old man a lot of free time as well, as Brock, Peony, and Leon often take off into the wilds of the Isle of Armor, leaving both him and Joe alone. While Joe is feeling a little bit down, he's not entirely useless in this situation, as he's opted to try and curb his feelings by helping Mustard with this entire build. Even though he is only 10 years old and he's not really good with the hammer, he's at least good at collecting firewood and other things like that. However, while Mustard is stoic, the mood of Joe does not go unknown, and the old man decides to address this head on, as he can't have somebody around him bringing down the mood like this. So while they're on their last day of training out in the wilds of the Isle, Mustard decides to address this issue with Joe, asking him point blank what his issue is, to which the boy tries to play it off at first, stating that he doesn't know what the old man is talking about, he must be seeing things. However, Mustard tells Joe that he needs to drop the facade. He's been around a long time, and he can see that the boy is having his own personal struggles, and if he wants to face the challenge that he's put upon himself, then the only way to do it is to do it head on. So Joe might as well take this time to get some advice from somebody who's already lived a full life. While Joe is apprehensive about opening up to the old man, he can't doubt the truth in his words, so reluctantly he does, and he begins to bear everything to Mustard, starting back from before he was actually in school. Joe never really got along with other kids. He's always been the oddball. While other people were out playing with Pokemon, he was the one who was studying them indoors, trying to learn as much as he can from books and any type of televised events, studying anything that he possibly could about their biology, their attacks, where their origins lie, and anything like that. This kind of made the boy become an outcast over time, as whenever he did go outside, he was looked on as kind of like the loner, the recluse of his entire neighborhood. And as a result, all the local kids just shunned the boy, so he took to just staying inside. Even more, that way he wouldn't be ostracized and made to feel like he was less than nothing by the neighborhood kids. However, things came to a head when it came to the point to where he wanted to go to the Pokemon Academy. His parents didn't have a lot of money, so he had to do something that was going to allow him to get into the academy. But unfortunately, he wasn't really good at battling, so instead, Joe turned to his wits, offering up a thesis paper that he had written, and when it was submitted, Joe was chosen out of hundreds of applicants to attend the academy because of the information that was within the thesis paper itself had shown that Joe, even though he was a young boy, had great potential, as there was information in it and theories that even regional professors had never even thought of. So the way the alum at the school thought, Joe would be the perfect person to bring in, as they needed much more people that were on the more technical side of things, as their scholastic scores, so to speak, were kind of on a decline, so they wanted to pad the numbers by bringing in a few of the brainier children. And so Joe found himself in the premier Pokemon Institute inside all of Kanto. However, that didn't mean his problems were over. He was still looked down by all of the upperclassmen. He was treated no different than when he was at home, and it caused the boy to become even more recluse when he was at school as well, resigning himself to staying in his room unless he had to attend classes, and in between the points of when he was in his actual dorm and in class, he would do his best to avoid drawing any type of attention to himself. But that all changed when Brock entered the school. Joe didn't know what it was, but something about Brock told him that they were exactly the same. They were two peas in a pod, and it turns out Joe was right. They became fast friends, and they were able to help each other. Brock was able to teach Joe how to battle, and Joe was able to teach Brock how to do better on his studies. The two were the perfect team, and together they were on their way to climbing to the top of the school. But then the whole thing with Jazelle happened, and Brock came out here to Galar, so Joe followed, in hopes of secretly getting him to come back to the school. But when Joe realized that Brock had no intentions of going back, he resolved that he would be staying here with Brock as well, and that way the two can still be together. They can be the team like they were back in school. However, in more recent times on their journey, it's felt like that him and Brock are growing farther and farther apart. Brock has continued to get stronger and stronger with his Pokemon, while Joe is stuck being merely a cheerleader, a support group, and nothing more. It seems like Brock no longer needs the boy, and that scares him. And now he is off training with Leon and Peony to become even stronger, and Joe just seems to feel hopeless in the whole situation. Like no matter what he'll do, they're gonna end up being separated regardless. This is where Joe's rambling ends, only for Mustard to remain stoic for a brief moment, before saying he understands what the boy is saying. However, there is a slight problem with his logic in the situation. Joe is preventing himself from growing. He's willingly doing this to himself, as he's afraid of the next step, while Brock is pushing forward. He wants to grow. He wants to get stronger. He wants to be able to climb any mountain that's put in front of him. While from Joe's perspective, he would rather just stay at the bottom, as he's afraid to find out what's on the other side, because every time he's climbed a mountain, it's just been met with disappointment and loneliness. However, Mustard nitpicks what Joe said about him and Brock. You told me that you both learned from each other to get stronger. However, from my perspective, it looks like the only one that was doing the learning was Brock, while you have decided to hold yourself back. And that in itself is hurting Brock, as while he's worried about you, he will be unable to grow because you're no longer growing. He will always hold himself back to make sure you're able to keep up, which is preventing him from obtaining the greatness that he can actually achieve. This comment actually strikes Joe. He's not really sure of what to say to it. Is the old man right? Is he actually holding Brock back because he wants to hold himself back? The boy doesn't really have an answer for this. However, Mustard offers a possible one. You've been spending this whole time trying to do exactly what Brock is doing, especially by trying to obtain your own Gigantamax form for your Pokemon. However, just because you two are friends doesn't mean your journeys are on the same path. You're gonna have to walk your own path, regardless of if you will like it or not. This strikes Joe again, as he's upset that Mustard would say that him and Brock are gonna have to walk different paths. However, the old man points to his Sableye before Joe can say anything. It looks like your path may have already been laid out for you. You're just unwilling to accept it. Joe looks at the little goblin, who's gnawing on the stone that it found in the wild area, the one that he was told is a mega stone. Is that really where his path is going to lead, Joe thinks to himself? Hours later, we fade to Peony, Leon, and Brock, ending back up in camp. The three look exhausted, as well as do most of the wild Pokemon in the area, as they spent most of the day dodging Gigantamax battles. However, it wasn't without success, as Peony tells the boys that he feels like their training in the Isle of Armor has come to an end. There's nothing more that they can learn here that they can't learn out on the road, or challenging the last gym that they have in the Galar region. Both Brock and Leon look at each other as they begin to argue on who's going to get the chance chance to battle with Melanie first. They've both been training equally as hard. However, they both have a difference of opinions on who's going to get their first 8th badge. This whole altercation persists for the next couple of hours, while Peony, Joe, and Mustard do their best to try and ignore the chatter that the two are drumming up as the night fades on. The next morning, everyone is up bright and early. Brock, Leon, and Joe all bid farewell to Mustard at Peony's request. However, as Leon, Peony, and Brock begin to walk away, Joe takes a few extra moments to acknowledge Mustard and even present him with a bow, kind of like a sign of respect. The boy thanks him for the insight, and he's given him a lot to consider. The old man says nothing, merely looking at the boy before Joe takes off to catch up with his friends. Now we fast forward a couple of days, as all the boys and Peony have arrived back in Hammerlock, as they have some unfinished business here. Well, particularly Leon and Brock, who have ended up in another argument, one of many that has happened since they left with the Isle of Armor, and it's over the same thing: who's going to battle Melanie first. The two have been unable to decide on who's going to be able to take that honor, even going as far as battling each other on the road, using their Gigantamax forms to determine the outcome of who was going to be the first to challenge her. But unfortunately, all the results have ended up uncontested, as they all end in a draw, with Leon and Brock unable to determine a winner of said battles. This has also resulted in a couple of wild Dynamax encounters that everyone was forced to quell, so that way they could prevent any further damage to the countryside or any of human settlements throughout the Galar region. But now they're back in Hammerlock, and luckily for everyone, it's about midday, so they're going to be able to at least get one gym battle in. However, they're going to have to stop at the Pokemon Center first to get all of their Pokemon looked at, just to make sure that both Brock and Leon are ready to go. Luckily, this doesn't take long for the duo, as when Nurse Joy gives them both back their Pokeballs at the same time, Leon and Brock both take off out of the door looking to get to the gym first, so that way they can both challenge Melody, leaving Joe and Peony trailing behind the two, telling them to slow down. It doesn't matter who goes first, they're both going to get a chance to battle. However, as Joe and Peony catch up to the two, they find them in front of the gym once again, arguing on who's going to get to have a battle first. And besides them stands Melody, as the blonde mother of 6 looks on, excited about the prospect of getting a really good gym battle. This is where Peony and Joe finally are able to catch up, as Melanie compliments Peony on whatever work he did with these two. The fire in them is something she didn't see before, and not only that, but it seems like they have gotten a lot stronger. She just can't decide on who she wants to battle first, and it seems like neither one of them can decide either. However, there is going to be one person who's going to make this decision, as Peony, while even though he does like both of his pupils, he's grown tired of their consistent and utter bickering on who's going to challenge first. This is when he yells for them both to stop, causing the boys to pipe down for the time being. This gets Melanie's attention, as normally Peony isn't one to raise his voice. However, he only does when he has something to say, and what he says here is going to be very, very important. He tells the two that he's tired of their bickering. They've tried to battle to see who would get the first chance to battle her, and they were unable to come to a solution. So he's going to offer one, and he thinks that Melanie's going to like this. How about she battle them both? In a tag match, they will each use one Pokemon while she uses 2, and that is it, nothing else. In order for them to get a chance to win their 8th badge, not only will they both have to battle her at the same time and work as a team, but they will have to overcome the expertise of the currently strongest gym leader in all of Galar. This immediately causes both Brock and Leon to begin to argue at this point, telling Peony that they don't want to tag team with each other as they spend all of their time battling each other. However, the champion tells them to both stop. It's not his decision anymore, it's hers, as he points to Melanie, who is standing there with a twinkle in her eye. This is a prospect that she hasn't had a chance to face before, and they can tell by the look on her face that they're not getting out of this. The gym leader immediately accepts the terms of Peony's offer, telling the boys that they both better have their best Pokemon ready, because she is going to be the one to bring the heat. Both Brock and Leon just look on dumbfounded. How do they get themselves into this situation? They never wanted to battle in a tag team with each other, let alone at the same time in a battle together. And now they're going to have to decide on which Pokemon's best to use against Melanie. The two just hang their heads in tandem as they follow the leader into the gym with Peony and Joe right behind. behind them. It's not long before we find both Brock and Leon standing on the battlefield across from a very excited Melanie. The two are muttering to each other to stay out of their way, as they will be the one to win this, while the other just sits back. All the while in the stands, Joe looks on, asking Peony if this was really necessary. You know these two will not be able to pull this off. However, the champion merely laughs, telling Joe to have faith. After all, he's been working with them the last couple of weeks, and no one knows these two better than he does. They do have a chance. They just have to accept it. And this is where we pan back to the battlefield as Brock and Leon are both still arguing over who's going to get the victory, holding their Pokeball of choice in their hands, while Melanie, across from them, tells them that it's time to get the battle underway. She hopes that they're ready, because if they can't work together, then she's going to easily be able to take them out, as she sends in her only two choices for this battle, Lapras and a Pokemon that neither one of them have seen to date, a Darmanitan. As the two very bulky and girthy ice types hit the field with a thud, Brock and Leon can instantly feel the chill in the air, as they both have to ready their Pokeballs. Listen, just stay out of my way, Leon says. I have a plan to get this victory in one shot, as he declares, Charizard, go! While Brock tells the boy that there's no way he's going to let him get all the credit for this win, declaring, Colossal, your time to battle! As the two fully evolved fire types hit the battlefield with another earth-shaking thud, Melanie isn't even surprised at their choices. She figured that they both would go with the fire type, as it has the best advantage at trying to beat her. But she both reminds the boys of their last battles here in the gym. Neither one of those fire types could do anything against the sheer cold of her ice types. So please don't hope that the typing will ride you to a victory. Make this worth my time. However, neither one of the boys are going to let Melanie phase them, as the echoes of their last failed battle is nothing more than a mere memory, as they both give their first commands. Colossal, use Ancient Power. Charizard, use Flamethrower. As the fire and rock combination tears across the battlefield, Melanie simply sighs a bit of disappointment. She knew that these two would try something like this, so she has exactly what she needs to counter it, as she commands Darmanitan to use a move called Expanding Force, while Lapras is going to counter with a move called Surf. These two are launched in perfect tandem, as the psychic energy from the Expanded Force is used to push the water from the Surf out and spread across the battlefield, creating some sort of counter barrier to block both the rock and fire type attack, before submerging Charizard and Colossal in a massive wave of water, washing them into the gym wall. While the force of this combo attack was great, the fact that it was spread over a wide area means that the damage that both of the starters took wasn't nearly as much as if it was a single attack. This allows both Charizard and Colossal to stammer back to their feet, as their trainers ask them if they're okay. However, luckily for Brock, something's going to kick in here, as Colossal's steam engine has engaged, as the heat from the coals on its back begin to simmer as the water evaporates into a gas. However, while this is a small sliver of hope for the boys, this isn't shown on their face, as they're still trying to get over the shock from the combination attack that Melanie was able to lay out across the battlefield, while the blonde-haired woman simply just chuckles a little bit, telling the boys that she told them they would have to be stronger than they were before, and if they can't figure out how to work together, then there's no way that they're going to be able to beat her, even if they both have the type advantage. This comment triggers Leon a little bit, as the realization sets in that everything that Melanie was telling them is true. However, Brock actually turns out to be the voice of reason here, telling Leon that they need to calm down. She's right. If we don't work together, then we won't get a chance to beat her, and it's better if we try to do this as a tag team than alone. After all, we both know what happened the last time we took her on alone. While Leon does not like this suggestion, he knows that Brock is right, asking what the boy has in mind if they're actually going to try and start working together, to which Brock simply smiles with one suggestion: I think you should go big. Instantly, Leon begins to clue into Brock's plan, but this will be a little bit of a risk, so he tells Brock that he better be right about this, as this is their only chance to do this. Immediately, Leon recalls Charizard as his Dynamax band begins to glow, and the ball immediately grows in size. This gets Melody giddy, as she sees Leon's Charizard pop from its ball. However, what comes out this time is not the familiar Charizard that she's battled before, as Leon has managed to achieve its G-Max transformation. So, this is what you've been up to the last couple of weeks, eh, Peony? Well, let's see if the boys really have learned anything. Immediately, the next set of battles begin, as Leon sets the pace for this next encounter, ordering Charizard to use a Max Flare flare. What happens next is a massive burst of fire energy and heat as flames erupt from the epicenter of Charizard. This causes Melanie to use the same counter that she used before. However, because it's backed by the power of a Gigantamax transformation, her combination attack isn't able to push through like before, merely being able to stave off the attack of Charizard as it prevents any damage to either one of her Pokemon. However, Leon is still smiling even though he was unable to get through her barrier. This has Melanie curious, but she's not going to have to wait for long as Brock is able to follow up quick, using the remnants of the max flare and what it creates to intensify one of his own attacks, as he orders Colossal to use a rapid spin. The rock type uses its maxed out speed to move in a circular formation down the battlefield as it collects the flames from the max flare, turning itself into some sort of burning hot ember as it begins to slam into Darmanitan. However, Melanie is not a novice trainer, and she knew this was coming from a mile away as she orders her ice type to use a rock slide, and it's able to put up a defensive barrier as Colossal slams into it before hitting Darmanitan. This minimizes the damage that the ice type would have taken and causes some blowback to Colossal as well, causing both to end the skirmish, taking the equal amount of damage instead of what Brock had intended in the beginning. That's one turn, Leon says to himself. However, Melanie doesn't seem to be worried as she's staring down a Gigantamax transformation. But then again, neither is Brock, even though his Pokemon was on the receiving end of some damage on that last altercation. Leon turns to his partner, telling Brock that he better have a plan, as that first interaction didn't exactly go 100% in their way. However, Brock points out that even though they weren't the victors in it, they were still able to come out with a little bit more progress than previous encounters. So they need to continue to push. If you say so, Leon says. Charizard, it's time. Let's use G-Max Wildfire. Using the intensity of the sun that the Max Flare had provided from the previous turn, Charizard begins to glow in a hot aura. He tells the fire lizard to dump everything it has into this attack. They cannot let Melanie get out of this unscathed. However, the gym leader seems unbothered as Charizard begins to swell with an overwhelming amount of fire energy. All the while, Brock is holding on, not giving any commands to Colossal, which begins to concern Leon. However, Brock has a plan, and he needs Charizard's attack to be executed in order for it to go off. But unfortunately for them, this plan is going to fall short, as Melanie has decided it's time to stop playing around, ordering both Darmanitan and Lapras to go on the offensive. But unfortunately, this isn't going to be good for either one of our heroes, as Darmanitan has chosen to use its more physical side, rushing in to use its upper body strength and executing a superpower at the command of its trainer, while Lapras plays a little bit more defensive, while it begins to sing its heart out, causing Charizard to begin to grow drowsy, as the fire lizard is the target of the Loch Ness Monster's song. Neither trainer can do anything but watch as Charizard begins to sway back and forth before toppling back, with the energy barriers being the only thing that holds the giant kaiju up. While on the other hand, the only thing that saves Colossal from being pummeled to death by the superpower is its speed, allowing the rock type to shift ever so slightly, preventing the fighting type move from ending it in this battle. This leaves both heroes unable to contemplate their next move. This lady just put them on a permanent round of defense, and if they don't figure something out now, then they're not going to be able to get a chance at victory anytime soon. And this is going to be reinforced when Melanie decides to turn things up a notch, as she pulls out the Pokeball for Lapras, and her Dynamax band begins to glow before recalling the water type, only to send it out in its much more Gigantamax form. And this is something that neither Brock or Leon have ever experienced before, and it's causing the boys to tense up a little bit as they're unsure of how to handle it. All the while, Joe in the stands is beginning to doubt his friends, telling Peony that there's no way they're going to have a chance to win. However, the champion offers a comment to the contrary. They've never been able to push Melanie into a G-Max transformation before single-handedly, but now the two are working together, and she's been forced to take this on. So that means that they have made great progress in the time that they were training, and I still believe they have a chance to earn their final badge here. I hope you're right, Joe says as we pan back to the battlefield, as Melanie decides it's time to give her first commands, ordering Darmanitan to use an Icicle Crash, and she also orders Lapras to use a Max Geyser. However, they're not aimed for Colossal, they're both aimed for Charizard. Melanie has targeted the fire lizard as it's unable to defend itself, and Leon can do nothing but call to his starter, hoping that it'll wake up as it is beginning to be consumed by the attacks. And just just as the boy begins to lose hope, a command from Brock is given, as he orders Colossal to use a rapid spin. The rock type intercepts both of the techniques as it spins at a high rate of speed, pulling in whatever fire is left over from Charizard's G-Max Wildfire and creating somewhat of a heat shield for the two, preventing any major damage to either one of them. However, this is going to come at a cost, as the Max Geyser has taken over the Max Wildfire, and there is no longer an intense sun or residual fire to cause any damage to anyone on the field that is their opponent, as it is consumed by rain, powering up any type of water type attacks that either one of Melanie's Pokemon would have. And just as the bad news continues to roll in, there's one more thing that the boys are going to have to deal with, as even though it's asleep, Charizard's Dynamax transformation has run its course, as the fire starter reverts to its normal size, merely slumbering on without a care in the world. Both of the boys grit their teeth as Melanie begins to chuckle again. Well, it looks like you two are against the ropes, and this battle isn't going to last much longer, especially with Colossal being the only one to battle. So I guess it's time that we put you out of your misery. Lapras, it's time. G-Max Resonance. Suddenly, a gust of wind and ice begins to consume the entire stadium as the temperature drops rapidly. Both Leon and Brock do nothing but watch on as their Pokemon are potentially knocked out from this gym battle. However, Brock isn't going to stand by, as he knows that they still have one ace in their hole. Unfortunately, it's much earlier than he wanted to use it, but they're not going to have any other choice as he initiates his Pokemon's G-Max transformation. As he tells Colossal it's time to go big, he immediately recalls his starter Pokemon before the ball enlarges, and he throws it back on the battlefield, with it immediately popping from the ball and using a Max Flare at the command of its trainer. While both of our heroes' Pokemon suffered damage from the G-Max Resonance, the Max Flare was enough to counteract both the water and the ice that was in the air, preventing them from being knocked out. And luckily, this attack was enough to awaken Charizard, as the fire lizard begins to stand up to its feet, shaking off the drowsiness that it had had from that Sing attack. Whoa, quick thinking, Brock. But that doesn't mean that you guys are out of the woods yet. You're still gonna have quite the battle ahead of you, and from where I'm standing, it looks like both of your Pokemon are looking pretty tired. Unfortunately, Melanie is right, as both of their trainers look to Charizard and Colossal, as they're both breathing heavily. They're not going to have much more time in this battle, so they're going to have to figure out a way to end it before things take a turn for the worst. Luckily, Leon thinks he has an idea, as he tells Brock that they have to isolate the two. Whether Melanie wants to admit it or not, both of her Pokemon have gotten weaker from this battle as well. The G-Max Wildfire left residual damage to the two a couple of turns back, so until it was dealt with, they were taking fire burns sporadically throughout the entire battle. And not only that, but Darmanitan managed to weaken itself by using that superpower on Colossal. Instantly, Brock understands what Leon is going for. However, because Lapras is still Gigantamaxed, they're going to have one more turn that they have to prevent that thing from knocking them out. Otherwise, they're going to be back to where they were at the beginning of all this. But Brock understands the assignment, as Colossal is the only thing that's going to be able to take that thing on. However, with Leon and Brock both battling each other for so long, they understand both of their starters more than anyone, and they understand each other's starter as well. And Leon makes a suggestion. It's time to go on the attack, as he tells Brock that they're going to need Colossal's most powerful move, and they're not going to have any time to get this right. They have to do it now, as Melanie is back on the attack, ordering Lapras' final move for its Gigantamax transformation in a Max Geyser, while Darmanitan's going to add a little bit more power to it by using an expanding force. It's here that Brock takes the first step to turn the tables in their favor, as he commands Colossal to use a G-Max Volcolith. Suddenly, a barrage of rocks appears in the air above everyone. The boys' goal is to use this to try and stop any type of damage from the G-Max Geyser. However, Leon has his own take on this version, as he tells Charizard to use an Iron Tail. The Fire Lizard puts all of the power it has into this last attack as it swings the steel move in a circle before colliding with the Volcolith stones, causing them to burst into smaller pellets as they pepper across the battlefield. While some of them are unable to get through the combination attack, the ones that were hit with more power are, and they begin to pelt Darmanitan one after another until the Yeti is forced to take a knee. And this couldn't happen at a better time either, as the power of the G-Max transformation for Lapras is beginning to wane, as the water type begins to revert to its normal form, and the Max Geyser drops in power, allowing the stones to begin to get through the wall of water, as Lapras is now pelted by the stones that Charizard had created as well. As everything begins to subside, it's revealed that both Pokemon did take a decent amount of damage out of that, but unfortunately, there's still water covering the battlefield, and they have induced a rain with that G-Max Geyser. Now both Charizard and Colossal's attacks will be weaker if they're fire-based, which the boys reiterate to each other in tandem, as Melanie decides that it's time for her to go back on the offensive, calling for another Power Force Surf combo. However, Brock isn't going to let them execute this, as he knows exactly what he has to do, telling Colossal to use its mammoth size and increase speed to take on the now massive wall of water so that way it doesn't hit Charizard. The rock type does whatever it can to break through the psychic and water energy before finally emerging on the other side, as it throws whatever remains of its weight into Darmanitan, as the two go tumbling across the battlefield with Colossal's Gigantamax frame landing on top of the Ice Yeti. What they see is Colossal unconscious as it begins to revert in size. However, as it returns to its normal size, Darmanitan is also left unable to battle, bringing this to a 1v1 with just Charizard and Lapras remaining. Wait, why did you do that? Leon says. However, Brock tells him not to dwell on it. He gave Leon an opening. Now the boy needs to take it, or else Lapras is going to be able to beat him. To which Brock is right, as Melanie has merely recalled Darmanitan and ignored everything else, commanding Lapras to use an Icy Wind on the fire type. But Leon isn't going to let this opening go to waste, as he tells Charizard to use a Fire Spin. The intensity of the flames are able to engulf the ice type attack before surrounding Lapras in a wall of fire. Melanie knows if she doesn't do something, then Lapras will fall to this attack, so she tells it to use another Surf in an attempt to break it. However, the water type has taken way too much damage, and it's unable to muster up the water needed in the intense heat that it's now engulfed in, causing old Nessie to flinch. This gives Leon the opening needed, as Charizard begins to tear down the battlefield using what strength it has left to charge an Iron Tail, before slamming it into Lapras, and they both go tumbling into the gym wall, just like Darmanitan and Colossal had before them. But luckily for Brock and Leon, while Lapras lays unconscious, Charizard is able to barely stand, bringing the battle to a close and giving both Brock and Leon the victory here. Neither one of the two boys can believe it. They were actually able to beat Melanie. They just stand in stunned silence, kind of staring off into a spacey gaze, unable to really do anything else. However, the two are shocked from their trance as Peony, Melanie, and Joe join them on the battlefield. What a great job, you two. You've managed to grow a lot within the last couple of weeks, Peony says. I say, Melanie responds, that was a very good battle, and I'm glad that you suggested them be in a tag team battle with me. I can't remember the last time I had so much fun, and as a token of my appreciation, here you two go. I present to you the Ice Badge, as Melanie holds out both of her hands, one for each Brock and Leon. The two reach out, grabbing the badges from the palms of her hands before thanking Melanie for all of the intense battles that they were able to have with her. This really is a surreal moment. It's been so long on this journey, and they were both able to finally get their 8th badge of the Galar League. The realization that their journey is almost at an end is beginning to set in both for Brock and Leon, and more importantly, for Joe. However, this somber moment is going to be interrupted by a very familiar voice, as one of Brock and Joe's old traveling companions enters the gym. How cute. You two managed to get your 8th badges. Well, Miss Melanie, if you enjoyed their battle, then you're gonna love mine, Jazelle says. And that's where we're going to bring this part to an end for now. So tell me, how did you feel about this? What did you think about the training that both Brock and Leon did in the Isle of Armor? How about the conversation that Joe had with Mustard? How do you think that's going to affect the boys' future going forward? And of course, how about the battle that both Leon and Brock had with Melanie? Did you enjoy the back and forth between the two? And then, of course, Jazelle. Has she really managed to gather all of the badges except for this one in Galar? And if so, who's sponsoring her? Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. And that's all we had for today's video. I really appreciate you guys stopping by to watch all the way to the end, and I just wanted to say thank you for that. If you guys really enjoy my content, consider following me on some of my other platforms like Discord, where you can get to know other people who are interested in what ifs, or on Twitter, where I post sometimes behind the scenes updates. Or if you want to help the channel grow a little bit extra, why don't you consider donating like the people right here have, as whatever you could offer could help us get to a larger audience by helping us get new videos done, or some of the projects that we've been more custom art is getting kind of expensive, so we want to make sure that we have the funds to do that. But with all that being said, I really hope you guys enjoyed everything, and I will see you in the next video.